Hello and welcome to the Advocacy Exchange. We're going to give everybody just a few moments to get settled as everybody comes in. I am Dave Craig, one of the co-founders and the CEO of Grit Health, and we are deeply honored to bring this session and this platform to you together in partnership with Bristol Myers Squibb. Grit Health is a team of 40 individuals. Most of us are cancer patients and survivors, and we work together with our partners to ensure that lived experiences are included in the ways new medicines are developed and how everybody has equitable access to ensure the best possible outcomes for everyone. We're going to give you a little more framing in just a second, but I want to share with you quickly that we do have an ASL interpreter with us. You can find the interpretation icon at the bottom of your screen. If you want to click on that, a pop-up window will appear so you can follow along with the interpreter. Her name is Amber Rose, and Amber, we're so grateful to have you here with us today. I'd like to move quickly, Lorena Curie, to have you open the session today, which is titled Patient Advocacy is Integrating Lived Experiences in Medicine Development. And we've known each other, Lorena, for several years in your role with BMS as the head diversity strategy for R&D. And what always has struck me, Lorena, is just the authenticity and passion you bring to that work. I remember when I was going through 2 cancer diagnoses in my 20s, working in industry, it was hard to find such remarkably authentic voices. And you in this role creates more hope for the future. And so I am honored to introduce Lorena Curie to start our session.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Buenos días. My name is Lorena Curie. They call me Lore. And as Dave was saying, I'm the head of diversity strategy for Bristol Myers Squibb. That means clinical trial diversity is my full-time job. My pronouns are she, hers. And I'm a Latino woman from Lebanese heritage. And I want to highlight this because it relates perfectly with the work that I'm doing, making sure that the patients that are participating in clinical trials are reflective of the real world and aligned with the epidemiology of the disease that we study, irrespectively of their race, their ethnicity, their sexual orientation, gender identity, where they live, what they believe in, so many things which are important. But in full transparency, I am honored to be opening the session for patients, right? Because the work that we're doing is for patients. And more importantly, we're trying to do this with patients. When we talk about clinical trial diversity, we talk about community outreach, engagement, education, awareness. We do so many things for assuring that there are more diverse providers. But we also need to keep on working to make sure that we design inclusive trials. And the conversation that we had when preparing for this meeting referred to how, I don't want to say difficult, but how complicated it is to make it at an industry level, at an enterprise level, with all the resources that we have. And that's why it's important to give the voice to the patients that will be presenting today, to Barry and to Sheila and to Victoria, because if this is so nothing for a company, can you imagine how this is for the patients? So the way that we want to make things happen is to assure that we think about our designs from that inclusive lens, that we think about their lived experiences. And I am happy to see that the work that Bristol Myers Squibb has been doing is amazing. But I'm more happy to see that my Bristol Myers Squibb colleagues are fully aware that there is much more to be done. But what really brings joy to my heart is that BMS is not the only one in this journey, that there are many others in the pharma industry, including health authorities, saying, let's make this real and let's make this sustainable. That just keeps me moving and ongoing. So as I said, I am honored and I do appreciate this opportunity to you, Dave, and to the entire great team. You have set up a great session, and I'm sure that all the people in the audience will really enjoy it. I do encourage you to be as active and as participating as you can. And I will hand it back to you because I'm not sure if the rest of the team knows, but you're not only a patient and a caregiver, but you're a very strong advocate for this important work. which eventually will make us think about clinical trial diversity just in clinical trials, right? As an opportunity, as it should be. So with that, I will bring the floor back to you, and I appreciate this opportunity, and I wish you a very successful session. Thank you.
Lorena, thank you so much. Um, our team, we always say that we don't work with pharma or work with industry. We work with Lorena, and we work with Jasmine and Maurice and Hong, and the people that move things forward with their passion. And you embody that in such an amazing way. Thank you so much for starting us off. You said something, Lorena, that I want to carry right into our introduction. I heard you say, give the voice to patients. And in our prep session with Sheila Thorne, who will be leading this courageous conversation today, I said, I don't want to in any way insert my voice in a place where others is more important or needs to be more heard because it hasn't. And Sheila encouraged me to share that. And so, Lorena, when you said, think about giving the voice to patients, for me, my experience growing up, going to school, I can remember from kindergarten through early college, I never had an instructor or a teacher who was also a person of color.
Mm.
And so to sit and to learn from people that I didn't learn from growing up, and to have heroes help me learn how to be open and have those conversations is such a humbling experience. And I can't think of any other more appropriate way to introduce our moderator to lead this conversation today. Sheila Thorne, you have made this your life. You have made integrating the voices into medicine's development and ensuring everybody has equal access in a way that I feel just so humbling. And I'm honored to have you as a mentor and a friend, and to have you lead the session today. I just want to share with everybody, Sheila Thorne is the president and CEO of Multicultural Healthcare Marketing Group. She is a native New Yorker and was a senior executive in preeminent marketing and communication agencies before doing this work to make our future better for everybody. Sheila, I hope I have given you the respect I have for you in this introduction for the conversation today.
You absolutely have, David. Thank you so much. And thank you, Lorena, for your opening remarks. I always need people that have passion and commitment and sustainability in their remarks. And David and Lorena definitely exemplify both of those things. It is my honor to be a part of this conversation, and it is indeed courageous. It's been 30 years since the NIH mandated that people of color be included in clinical research. Here we are in 2023, and we're still talking about the same thing. But in terms of Grit Health and its efforts, it's now time to move to action. And so we have with us today two individuals who exemplify the passion and commitment, not only to development of medicines with making sure that there is inclusiveness in that process, but also that there's an authenticity and a genuineness in that as well. So it's extremely an honor for me to have Lorena, Ashley, and Barry a part of this conversation, and Grit Health to lead the charge, to move us from awareness to action. So let me have those two panelists introduce themselves to you, tell them a little bit about themselves and their organizations. And Ashley, I'll start, Barry, I'll start with you. Please introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Barry. I live in Boston, Massachusetts. I am a lung cancer survivor for 11 years. I was diagnosed with stage 3B, non-small cell lung cancer, and I was told that I had less than 6 months to live. So here we are, 2023. I'm still going strong.
Excellent. Thank you. And that's a genuine voice right there. So it's not only an advocate, but a patient. And out of a patient experience, advocacy developed. Ashley, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, everyone. So glad to be here. I'm Ashley Ratcliffe, Director of Communications and Operations with We Are Ill. We're a patient advocacy organization that supports Black women living with MS. I'm also the best-selling author of Jesus Year, a self-help memoir that was designed to guide MS patients into finding their new normal after their first year of being diagnosed. I'm calling from Long Beach, California. So hi, everyone from the LA area, and especially people from Detroit. I was born there. So hello, everyone. So glad to be here.
Wonderful. Ashley, we're going to stay with you and help us to understand what was your personal journey in terms of living with your chronic disease as well as with clinical research. How has that been a part of your journey, being a part of clinical trials?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with relapsing remitting multiple sclerosis in March of 2018. It really threw me for a loop because I had been healthy my entire life. It started with numbness in my left foot, and from there, it just went downhill. I was misdiagnosed as having a herniated disc in my L4, L5 spine. And about 6 months into the treatment, I was undergoing physical therapy. I realized something is not working. Like even the physical therapist was like, you should be seeing results. Something is off. So I sought a second opinion, which by the way, the chiropractor I was seeing was very upset with me for seeking a second opinion, which I found very strange because I'm the person living with this. I'm the person who can't walk straight. So anyway, after getting a second opinion, seeing a neurosurgeon, he actually told me what I had was not a herniated disc and that it was something in the demyelinating disease family. And I was like, what is that? He said it could be multiple sclerosis. And I was completely thrown because I did not know what that was. All I know was Montel Williams, the TV host, had it, and that's the extent of my knowledge of it. So after that, my faith is very important to me. So a lot of prayer, a lot of seeking God, a lot of, grieving this new normal for me. But once I got, over the initial surprise of having a chronic illness for which there's no cure yet, I sprung into action. Like, my life isn't over. Like, just because I have this condition, I'm going to live my life to the fullest. I'm going to educate myself. And so through finding the MS Center of California, that's where I go for treatment, as well as I see a neurologist in Long Beach locally. At the office at the MS Center, there was a sign that said, hey, do you have walking issues? Which I did. Join us for a study. And so I inquired during my appointment about the study, and it involved taking a pill, a drug that would help improve your gait. So they initially told me, like, it's a study, you can stop whenever you wanted. They made sure that I was comfortable. I didn't know that that was a clinical trial because that never was, those words never came up. It was just like a study. And we'll evaluate you. You'll come into the office, you'll take the medicine daily, you'll do walking tests, and then, we'll monitor you, and that is that. And you can stop whenever you want. Let us know if you're feeling uncomfortable with anything. And that really put me at ease because I was just in disarray. I had just got this crazy news, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to do whatever's in my power. Maybe this will help me. And so the drug did help me during the study. And I loved being a part of it. It felt like I was doing my own part to, contribute to whatever medicine was being developed, or just helping, lending my voice to make things better in my own way. And so it was a positive experience for me. I learned later, through We Are Ill, we host conversations about various topics. And so during MS Awareness Month, I hosted a panel about demystifying clinical trials, because, the Black community has, mistrust of the medical community, just historically. We can get into that later. But so we wanted to demystify what exactly a clinical trial was. And it wasn't until then that I was like, oh yeah, like I was in a clinical trial, because it never was like this big scary thing. It was like, take a drug, we'll, compensate you, and, let us know how it goes. Clinical trials are so vast. It's not one thing. And I think the more like we educate each other about what exactly that is and kind of lower the barrier to entry, the better things will be. So yeah, that's been my experience with clinical trials. I've only done that one, but it was a positive experience, and I'm glad that I did it.
Well, that's quite a personal story to begin with in terms of your journey. How long from your diagnosis to being asked to participate in a clinical trial, what was that time frame like, Ashley?
So I would say I was It took me 6 months to be diagnosed. And then a month
Mm.
after that, I started going to the MS Center. So about 7 to 8 months.
Wow. Okay. Well, definitely your stick-to-itiveness and your decision to make sure that you understood what's going on was critically important. So the journey is not a fast one. It's slow and steady for sure. So thank you for sharing that. Barry, what about your journey? How did it happen once you were diagnosed and then volunteered for a clinical study? And that's right, Colleen, she said in the chat, trial is not necessarily a word that the community likes. So study might be a little bit more easier to have the conversation. Tell us your story, Barry.
Thank you, Sheila. So I wasn't introduced to understanding what the benefits of a clinical trial were as early as Ashley. I had started, I mentioned earlier that I was diagnosed with advanced lung cancer. And I started with the standard chemotherapy radiation treatments. And that went on for a number of 2 years.
Oh my.
And then after 2 years, I went into a clinical trial for a drug. I won't name the drug, but there was a drug. And I went into that trial. But that trial didn't work for me because basically I had horrible side effects and I lost my equilibrium, and it took me like 6 months to get my equilibrium back. And then so I went back to other standard type cancer treatments. But again, what was happening was, since those treatments weren't working, then I was running out of options with the standard treatments. So I was blessed that I was going to a institution where clinical trials, that's what they do. They focus on research. So they had a team along with my oncologist with a research team. And I was introduced to the research team, and they come and share with me the type of trials that were available based on the biopsy, my biopsy, and what the results or options were available based on what the results of the biopsy were. So the second trial was a trial for immunotherapy. And that actually just changed my life. It turned everything around. And so at that time, I would think I was well into 2 years, maybe 2.5 years, maybe getting close to 3 years before I got into that trial where I was being treated for cancer. So it was a journey getting there. But once I had the first infusion, I personally knew that there was something that was changing.
Okay.
That was different than all the other infusions that I had received before. In fact, I waited later that day to meet with my oncologist to tell him that. But he reminded me, he says, well, Mr. Nelson, I'm not sure what you're feeling. I know you're excited about this. He says, but our process is we're going to give you 3 infusions. We're going to do a scan, and then we'll look at the results.
Okay.
So after the results, after 3 treatments, they did a scan, and the tumors had shrunk 25%.
Wow.
So the research team, the medical team, they were in awe. They felt like that was, those were not the expectations they had. So, it was moving in a very positive way. So I stayed in the clinical trial for, I think 2.5 years.
Okay. Well,
and then, like Ashley, I'm a person of faith. So
yes.
I felt like God was telling me it was time for me to come out of the clinical trial.
Okay.
And so I did. I discussed that with my oncologist. I discussed that with my research team. They really weren't happy about that. They, one of the research nurses, wonderful woman, she just broke down, started crying. She said, we've worked so hard to get you here. And so why are you tempting God? And so I tried to articulate the best way I could, that if I didn't move the direction where I felt God was leading me, then I was telling God I didn't trust him. So the good thing is that they respected my wishes. They worked with me. I came out of the trial. And I, basically every 3 months I would go and I would get a scan. And after 1 year from coming out of the trial, my whole entire research team, all the oncologists, all the clinicians I work with, they came to my appointment. And they told me, they said, listen, we're so proud of you and thank you for helping us see things from your perspective. Not that they weren't supportive of me, but just their confidence in standing with me. Not fully understanding, maybe this was the best decision, but it was my decision. Yes. And they partnered with me, and they acknowledged that after 1 year. And that was one of the greatest greatest things to me, because that helped me, encourage me even more to want to talk to other people who look like me about my experience and what possibilities there could be for them that were facing challenges similar to mine.
Amazing story, Barry. And I see that common thread with both you and Ashley about your faith, about your spirituality, which obviously gave you kind of the foundation for your continuing to pursue. But were there any negative aspects of clinical trials or clinical studies that you have shared with or heard from patients? Ashley, anything that you would like to see different or changed?
I wish that more communities of color, more Black people were aware of what it entails and put themselves out there, just because we are such a small fraction of the participants in the study, and we need to know how these drugs, these treatments affect us as well. So I wish, that's not an indictment. It comes with, you know, education and the responsibility too on pharma companies and doctors to like put these opportunities in front of their patients. Like, thank God I saw the sign. There's like literally a flyer. If I hadn't seen the flyer, he didn't mention it to me, the doctor, and you know, I had to say, oh, I saw this flyer, like I'm interested. So I think that's one thing. I haven't personally heard of people having bad experiences when they do participate in clinical trial. The only negative experience from my perspective was, I just wish, and it's just the way that trials or studies work. I wish that I would be able to get the medicine after, because once the study was ended, it was like, all right, thank you, we got all we needed. And I'm like, but it's like helping me, like, you know, and there's a little bit of trepidation about what would happen afterwards. I'm fine without it, thankfully. But yeah, those are just some of my thoughts about it.
Those are very important thoughts, because clearly you really need complete transparency. And Barry, it sounds like you were the one that stimulated your team to do a better job, to take charge and control. So your response to what you were experiencing helped them to do a better job. Did you feel that was the case?
Definitely. I felt like, you know, I opened a new pathway for them to understand using my patient voice. But I also want to share, I also was participating in a clinical trial for COVID-19. And so one of the reasons that I wanted to participate in that trial is because I wanted other people to look similar to me to, you know, if you kind of think about that, the pandemic and a lot of people, you know, they were saying, well, you know, I'm not, how do you trust this drug? How do you know what's going to do to you? How do you know what's going to be the long-term effects of this drug?
Yes.
But I wanted to use that opportunity to share my experience, how the second clinical trial actually changed my life. But also I wanted to demonstrate to others that, you know, where we have to begin to put our trust, that, yeah, we understand there's some harm that's been done in the past to all kinds of communities, but where are we now? What have they done to put protocols in place? What safeguards are there now available? And how do we look at that? How do we begin to build that trust and be participants in something that's going to benefit our life? So I was blessed to have that opportunity to participate in the clinical trial. One of the questions you asked Sheila was like, what are the pros and the cons? So there's a lot of pros, okay? But one of the cons, like when I was in the COVID-19, was totally different than when I was in the immunotherapy trial. The COVID-19 trial, it seemed so sterile to me. That's the word I'm going to use. I felt like, you know, you're a number. You come in and you sign in and they recognize you basically by your number. They do the vital statistics and everything. They give you, you know, they give you the medication or you don't get it, you know, they go through that process. And then, you know, this kind of like wash their hands. Okay, thank you. We'll see you for your next appointment. But in the other trial, they treat you like a human being. They treated you with more empathy and compassion. And so you felt like you were being, and you were part of something much bigger than yourself. Not in the clinic, not in the COVID-19 trial, you weren't. I mean, your participation was just as important. But in the other trial, I felt like more, I was part of a stakeholder where before, you know, a lot of times I talk to people and they say, well, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to be a guinea pig? Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I kind of felt like sometimes when I was go for my check-in with the COVID-19 group was I felt like, okay, you're just a lab rat.
Oh,
Well,
mhm.
make me a part of this so that
Yes.
I can feel better about this. I feel good about it, but I want to feel better, and I want to be able to share that experience with other people like me who may have some trepidation. So those are, to me, totally two different perspectives, and I'd like to see more attention, you know, uh, uh, at least around those areas to kind of personalize it so that, people can feel like they're part of something and there's a benefit, not just for them, but for people who come in behind them. Let them know that this is big and this is something that they're going to make a difference, even if it doesn't make a difference for their life. It's
Yes.
a possibility it's going to make a difference for other people's lives coming behind them. So that was really important for me, Sheila.
Very, very interesting, Barry. And I think you make a good point. The site team, the clinical team, is important in the process. And obviously, they're very efficient and proficient in what they do. But where's the humanity? And we talk about that a lot with Grid Health and with BMS, the humanity. It's about people. And
Yeah.
Ashley, you were shaking your head. Do you agree that we must create a culture of trust in order to not only recruit, but to keep people in the trial?
Yes, absolutely. I I have my own stories of just having to kind of like be brave and advocate for myself when it comes
Yes.
to like asking questions and things like that. And I feel like we need more of that. So yeah, I totally agree with everything that was said.
Yeah, and I think obviously this is a collaborative effort. We often talk about you get the best personal care, the most direct care when you're in a clinical study, and that's definitely a pro. But the team needs to understand that this is about people who have lives, who have a journey and just in dealing with every day, especially people of color. So I appreciate both of your comments in that regard, the humanity of it all. This is about not numbers, this is about people. That's very important. So Barry, once you learned about the clinical study and what was required, were you given a full disclosure of exactly what you'd be experiencing, or did you just get into the study and things just kind of moved along?
No, I actually, as I said, I had a research team when I got into the immunotherapy clinical trial, and that particular group, they would sit down with you to explain everything,
Okay.
the documentation that you had to sign, why you were signing it, as they were going through the trials. I mean, those trials, a lot of times they're happening at other places, not just at your institution. So there'll be other things that come up. So each time you come in for your infusion, they also, sometimes you may have to redo the paperwork because they may add something to something they discovered, and they would tell you why they're adding this, not just have you to initial something and sign off on it. They're explaining, well, the reason we're doing this is because this has come up, and now we've recognized X, Y, and Z, and we want to make you, again, they want to make you part of it. So then you're not sitting there, you're questioning things, and it's a good feeling because you're like, I'm glad I'm part of to, okay? Because maybe that didn't come up in me, but it came up in someplace else. And how's that going to help? How's that going to help someone else?
Right.
So, but again, when I was in the clinical trial for the COVID-19, they didn't give you feedback. They just said, oh, well, you would ask questions as well. You can check with the doctor when she comes in, and they would say, yeah, the trial is going well, but they wouldn't give you any specifics. They wouldn't really share with you the progress and how, I mean, you can look around the world and see that it was making an impact, but I'm a participant on this team. I kind of want to hear directly from you, even if you can't share with everybody, send a newsletter, send something out to those people participating to encourage them and to let them see the benefit while they're going through the process. So to me, that's where I think there's a better job can be done going forward.
Very important points that you make, and Ashley, I see, definitely agrees with you in that way. It's almost like laid out a day in the life of in the clinical study.
Yes,
what am I going to be experiencing on a day-to-day basis, and how does it affect my job, my family, my social life? So Ashley, did you have a clear picture of what your life was going to be like once you volunteered for the study?
No, I mean, they said, hey, this is the schedule, you'll take the drug, you'll come in like every other month, we'll do a walking study, and then that was that. It wasn't there wasn't much education about like afterwards, or like, I wish I was more privy to like the aftermath of it. It was just like, oh,
Yes.
I know it's helping me right now, but then I have to stop the trial because the trial's over. But I'm like, well, what about that medicine? Because like I haven't heard anything else about it in the
Mhm.
world of science, so like what where I just want to know like the end result kind of thing. So yeah, I just wish there was more follow-up and more inclusion in that regard.
Yeah, I've heard that also from other volunteers that I've had the privilege of working with as well. Give me everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I want to know what is the process? My job, my family, my personal life, social life, all of that needs to be in the conversation. So that's really key to take away. I'm going to go back to you, Barry, because not only are you of color, but you're a man. And you have a very different kind of lifestyle. What can you say to help all of those who are on this do a better job of reaching out effectively to people of color, men in particular?
Well, I think there's let me share a story. So
Okay.
I remember when I was dealing with cancer, and one day I had gone to Walmart and I ran into someone that I had known for many, many years. And when I saw him, he really looked sick. And I asked him, I said, Michael, what's going on with you? And he said, I've been diagnosed with cancer. And I said, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And we had a conversation. I said, well, I'm also dealing with it too. And so I asked him where he was going. And he said, well, I'm going to a different institution than yours. And so I said, well, have you considered coming over there? And he said, oh, I can't afford that place. And so basically what I'm getting at is there was a perception that there are certain places that people are welcome and they're not welcome, depending on what type of insurance they have, or
Yes.
let's be honest, their background, the color of their skin, their education. There's so many little things. And so I think it's important to communicate, at the highest levels and at the simplest form, is that everyone is welcome. And that we know that there's certain areas, certain communities where people have more of a struggle, and Black men is one of those. They don't like to go to the doctor for whatever reason, whatever fears. So there's an opportunity here to have conversations, to go into communities where those people live, and to have workshops or some type of discussions like what we're doing here today.
Yes.
To bring them some awareness of what's available to them, and kind of find out what are their questions, and kind of help answer those questions and guide them into what's the real reality. Because they may be living the reality of someone else, something someone else has told them. They're living with some fear. They're living with something where they were wounded. But this is a changing environment. There's a lot of good things going on. And how do we help people to know that and understand that? I think there are many paths. I don't think there's one solution. I think there are many, but I think the focus needs to be there are communities that we're not in touch with, and how do we reach out to them?
Yes, we've got to figure out a way to do this. It definitely is something that's long overdue. Ashley, women are often dismissed by the healthcare system as being drama queens or overreacting, being, clearly that falls upon Black women in particular, the whole stereotype of the mad Black woman. How do you encourage Black women to take charge and control of their health, even though the system may not be welcoming?
Look, you are in control of your health. I don't care what people think of you. You have to not care about looking crazy and getting the care that you need is what I found. Because honestly, when I was misdiagnosed as having a herniated disc, I'm thinking my cries are falling on deaf ears from this chiropractor. I'm telling him the treatment isn't working. Something else is off. And I did get a little irate and indignant when he told me oh no, everything is fine. And I'm like, no, it's not. So you need to yeah, we might be animated, we might be a little vocal, but we're the ones who are dealing with it. So that is irrelevant, so don't let, other people's perception of you stop you from getting the care that you need. And then conversely, I've heard, with We Are Ill, many people within our support group, our private Facebook group, they share that they're suffering in silence. They take years to tell their loved ones, their partner, their child, that they are living with multiple sclerosis. And it breaks my heart because you need a team, you need people to lift you up and encourage you, not just your medical team. but like just a support squad of people to like encourage you, like to go with you to your appointments. If you are that person who isn't vocal and you are afraid to ask questions, like that was my situation. I was like so overwhelmed and afraid, and I'm thinking like, oh, this guy has all these plaques and degrees on the wall, so he clearly knows more than me, and he is more valuable than me, the patient. And I thank God for one of my good friends became my patient advocate, and she would accompany me to my appointments.
Good
So
point.
like, so I just think we need to like get past like the perception and what people are going to think, and ultimately pursue our health and our well-being, by any means necessary. Yeah.
It's all right. It's all right. It's certainly something that we need to take into serious consideration. But both of you, Barry and Ashley, you have a very strong faith. You have clearly, that has been the mainstay of your continuing on. Not everybody has that. Not everybody is quote unquote religious. So if you don't have that kind of spiritual base, what can you hang on to keep you going, Barry? What was it with you, or what can you suggest to others that they need?
Well, I believe that, everyone believes in something. We don't know what that something is for each person. It might be the grass, it might be the flowers, it might be the sun. I don't know. But it's something that they believe in that helps to guide them, that gives them that internal peace, that internal strength to move forward. And so to me, that's the time that you tap into that to help guide you so that you can persevere. Is it okay if I kind of go back? Ashley was saying something I want to highlight as well.
Please.
So I have two adult daughters, and one of I know based on some discussions and things that they share with me, that women's health, getting the proper health care is a tremendous problem, because I've seen them. They've gone to different doctors, and then, they'll start seeing someone, and then the doctor will leave, or the doctor won't listen to them. And so so many times I would try to encourage them to advocate more for themselves. But the key thing was, I would always tell them, but if you don't feel like you talk to this provider and they're not responding, don't stay with them. Find another provider. I know it's difficult. I know you're tired. I know you're tired of telling the story to each provider that you meet, but don't settle for less, because that's what you deserve. And you got to keep on pushing, because if you don't push, then you're not going to get what you need. No one can get you there but you. And so I hear, some of their friends and my nieces, they talk about that, it's a common thing, seem to be, with women, and getting the right care. So hopefully, Ashley, I stand with you, and I stand with other women. And I think that's a really important point that, I think the pharmaceutical company and other healthcare professionals can really focus on. That's an area of improvement, opportunity. Actually, that's the way I see it. Opportunity to really change things around and really listen to what these women are telling them about their health, and help them, guide them on this journey to get the type of services that they need.
Powerful
I'm sorry
message.
for going off to the side, Sheila.
No. I think you're hitting right to the core of it, because it's about the individual experience. And I'm sure Ashley can attest to that as well. So your faith, Ashley, has moved you forward, and you obviously have documented that in your work as an author. So is that something that you would suggest to other women, that they take charge and control of their health? We use this word empower all the time. What does that really mean?
Yeah. It means just speaking up. I think the myth of the strong Black woman, it needs to go. It needs to die, because it's honestly holding us back as a community, as a people. Like we think we have to shoulder it all on our own. And my friends that Can Do MS hit the nail on the head. MS is not a me disease, it's a we disease. You need people to accompany you along your journey and support you. And so when you have the concept of like, oh, I need to do this on my own, oh, I don't want to burden other people with my with what I'm going through, that's false. Like, I've learned that my vulnerability is someone else's validation. So me being transparent, me being open, me sharing how things are makes it better for the next person. That's why We Are Ill exists, because we didn't, when Victoria, our CEO, was diagnosed in 2012 with MS, she didn't see herself represented. And so
Huh.
she took it upon herself to like be like, hey, I'm part of the conversation too. I'm a Black woman living with MS. I'm young, I'm a millennial. This is
Mhm.
what my experience is like. And that has opened up the door for so many people like myself who had no frame of reference. So I think we just need to just be more vulnerable and open and let people into what you're experiencing, because you never know how you sharing something could open up, could free someone else.
Absolutely. You know the expression, each one, reach one, teach one. And in the Black community, we talk about a village that it takes, and who is in that village for you to keep you going. And that's certainly critically important to retention, staying in the trial, even though there were ups and downs and back and forth. But Barry, Black people, the history, and obviously it's not just about Tuskegee. We hear a lot about that as an excuse. It's a metaphor for the most egregious form of research. But is it just that, or what else is there that's preventing people from volunteering? Like the gentleman you met when you were in the store, why would you want to do that? You want to be a guinea pig? Where does that come from? Why are we stuck there?
I don't have all those answers, Sheila, but in my observation, I know that people carry a lot of fear.
Yes.
They don't want to open up and share, maybe what's going on with them internally or physically. They're uncomfortable with that. A lot of people have been taught that way, to keep their mouth shut and to just, focus on home remedies, those type of things. And their health continues. Mental health, that's a big challenge. Everybody, I feel like every family has experienced that. In our community, so many times, we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to acknowledge that. And so I think part of it's been ingrained in our culture that we don't talk about things. We don't share things outside of our family. But that doesn't help us. It doesn't help us to move forward. We don't get the best care. We don't get better results. We're improving, but we need to cast, from my opinion, a broader net to get more people and help them to see the opportunities here available to us, and how that there has been a lot of harm done, but there are a lot of wonderful things going on, and we have an opportunity to be part of that, and for our lives to change and to improve and to prepare the next generation to not carry that heavy burden of all that stuff that's been passed down to them, be lifted. No, I'm not saying that we just remove all the safeguards or just trust everybody. We have to build trust, but we have to engage first. We've got to engage to be able to change the environment.
Exactly. Well, look at the history of Black people in America. I mean, when you look at the 400 years or more that we've been in this country, the resilience really rises to the top.
Yes.
And we've been able to overcome barriers, break through hurdles and all of that. So that clearly is, we need to pull that up and put that into the healthcare space, okay?
Yes.
I mean, when you look at our history, for as much as we've accomplished, we're pretty much miracles in
We
terms
are.
of how far we've come.
Every day.
We need to draw on that. And that's
Yes.
unfortunately what many people are, they're afraid. And you use the right word, it's fear of the unknown, fear of what it's going to do to me. But ask questions, challenge, be disruptive. You're entitled to it. You definitely have to be in that space. Well, tell me, please, Ashley, about the work that you do. You speak to large organizations. You do your work with your organization. We Are Ill. Have you seen it make a difference? Your presence as a Black woman in doing this work, has it made a difference?
Absolutely. Even hosting a meetup, a virtual meetup with our members, where you could ask questions like, what was it like dating with MS? Like, or like real questions that you don't really get the opportunity to do. We host a wellness weekend. It'll be in October this year. Last year was in November, and it has just been a game changer for Black women living with MS, because it's a space for us to connect, just to like see people that look like us, that look like our sisters, our moms, and to like have those conversations about what the experience of living with MS as a Black woman is, how to advocate for yourself, how to ask questions, how to improve your nutrition, how to like live a full life with MS, what that looks like. And we hear from so many people every day through our Facebook group, through social media, or just people even just inboxing us because they found us through, Google search, or they saw Victoria on the Sherry Shepherd show, just saying like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that I found you. Like, I have MS and blah, blah, blah. Like, I didn't know anyone until I saw you. And so we see every day how our work is making an impact and how things are shifting. And I also want to just call out our allies in this.
Please.
So many people, so many pharma companies. I see Allison from Novartis on the call, and I can't name them all, but like so many people are realizing that their role in, elevating Black voices.
Right.
And I just want to thank them for that because, coming into my MS diagnosis, like Victoria, like so many other Black women with MS, we didn't see ourselves reflected. And so when we have partners like that who want to amplify our message or just present a different face to what multiple sclerosis is, it just changes things. It's a game changer. So I just wanted to call out our partners and just thank them for their collaboration and support in our efforts. So we couldn't do it alone.
Thank you for that, because that's important. You can't do this alone. This is not a solo journey if you're going to have success. So you definitely need to have those folks with you who keep you going. I asked Barry this question when we did our speaker prep session, and he gave me a very interesting answer, and I'd like you to repeat it, Barry. We've gone from talking about eliminating racial and ethnic disparities. Now we've jumped into the health equity space. So that everybody will have the chance to achieve their optimal health. Is that aspirational, elusive? Is it realistic to expect that in our lifetime?
Most definitely, most definitely. The work that GRIT is doing and has been doing since I have been involved with them, but GRIT is just one of the organizations that I'm working with, okay? And I am so honored. I've been retired for a number of years, and I am more busy now than I have been when I was working on my job.
Not surprised.
Because people are understanding that, health equity is important, that it plays a role. And it's not just with the clinicians or the institution, but it's the systems, and it's the other, the pharmaceutical company, and it's the health products that they're making. It's everything. And so now that alignment is beginning to take shape, beginning to take form, so it's affecting the entire industry. And so those people who don't really embrace this, they're going to be left behind, and they're going to be left with an ugly stain of what things used to be, because there is a new dawning occurring. It's all around, okay?
Yes.
And so if you want to be part of the future, and you say that you want better outcomes for your patients and those from a medical perspective, then you got to jump on this train. You got to be part of it. You got to be part of the solution. You can no longer stand back and talk about it. You've got to do just what GRIT is doing right here. You've got to take some action. You got to demonstrate your commitment, and you got to stand strong in communicating that commitment to the community and those, your partners and your colleags in this industry.
The train has left the station.
It's left the station. Come on,
there's
Sheila.
still some people standing in the station trying to figure out, should I get on this train? Well, actually, you not only got on the train, you're in the first class car. So you definitely you definitely have to keep it going, keep it paying forward. So Ashley, again, what are the resources that you go to in order to keep yourself educated and inspired to keep going?
Yeah, so I do a ton of research. I'll look up articles. The MS Society has been very valuable. Organizations like Can Do MS, they host a specific meetup for Black MS patients and their caregivers. Those have been valuable. I know We Are Ill ourselves. We've created some resources that I know have been really impactful to our community. We have a glossary of MS related terms, because like, what even is a DMT? Like, you don't know what that is when you're diagnosed, for those that don't know, in disease modifying therapy. So terms like that about, Lemurt's disease sign, or, things like that, to just keep yourself better informed. And we also host conversations on our YouTube channel so that people can just have resources and just, my favorite one is the demystifying clinical trials one that we did for MS
Yes.
Awareness Month. It's something that I look back on often,
Mhm.
just because so much knowledge was shared from Black neurologists. It helps when you see your face reflected in the medical space. So that's something that we pride ourselves on with We Are Ill, is the people look like us, that the doctors are giving them information and it's better received that way. So yeah, I would say the MS Society has been fantastic, Can Do MS, and then our library of resources on our website and our YouTube channel.
Always learning, always learning. It's a journey. And that's definitely something that you have to keep up to date on. Because Barry, back in the day with Black folks, cancer was a death sentence. That diagnosis means, go home, get your affairs in order, you're not going to be here. You didn't accept that. But you kept pushing to find an answer, even though you may have been the only man of color involved in the study. Did that make a difference that your team was mostly white?
No, it didn't make a difference for me. So if you don't mind me backtracking a little bit, I shared that I was diagnosed with cancer. But my mother, she started with breast cancer, and she was a terminal cancer patient for like 18 years. And my mother's sisters, they had cancer. My grandmother had cancer. And so, and the reason I know this is because once I was diagnosed, I had genomic testing, and so did my mother, her sisters, and my grandmother. And so I was able to trace back the BRCA mutation from my grandmother to my mother to me. And so I'm saying all that to say this, that, there's an opportunity for us to make a difference in other people's life. And so when I got the diagnosis, I just talked to God. I says, well, this is where I am. I know what I've seen them go through. Let my life make a difference. I didn't have expectations that I was still going to be here, but let me be part of something that's going to help those coming behind me. Yes. And so, here I am. I'm still doing that. And I've been blessed, be given this opportunity to continue to be a blessing to others. And that's the mindset that I have, I'm going to leave here. We're all going to leave here one day. But in the meantime, I'm hoping that I'm making a difference for other folks, and that they realize that there's much more for them and for their lives, and that they encourage other people, because together a difference is being made. It's being made right now, No, the world's not perfect, and I don't think it ever will be, but it's not where it used to be. And it doesn't have to continue to be in a place where we struggle to have the best healthcare that we possibly can have. So
absolutely. So Ashley, is the arc of advocacy bending in the right direction? Are we on the right track now more than ever, or do we have a lot more work to do?
I mean, there's always work to be done, but I get encouraged when I see, small advances being made. Just people, I think as like a new patient, I always thought advocacy meant marching to the Capitol and like having a megaphone and like being center stage. Like, it's not, it's just literally just opening in your mouth and speaking up for yourself or for someone else. And so just that, having that insight and that knowledge, it changes everything. Advocacy could be just posting something to Instagram about your chronic illness. So I think when we look at it that way, and more people are mobilized and have these platforms to share about, healthcare or just their condition, I think it, strengthens the conversation, and then it does affect change. And so I'm grateful for it. And I mean, it's not fixed, it's not solved, but I do feel encouraged, and I feel like we are headed in the right direction.
I feel the same way. And there's no question in my mind that Barry and Ashley, you are making a difference. You are creating the track that we need to follow. So, my mom used to have an expression: lead, follow, or get out of my way. So you are leaders and we are followers, and we want people to join us on this journey. Those two roads, either you can stay where you are and not have the benefit of the quality healthcare that is available, or you can be a part of the change that you envision. So I applaud both of you for your work. You've inspired me, and I've been doing this again for almost 30 years. So we need your voices. They are authentic. You are genuine. I believe you. I trust you. And those are the voices we need out there to help our community. Because if you help our community, everybody gets helped.
That's right.
So you definitely have to be on that track. Well, what a great conversation. I'm sure we could talk together for hours, but I'll close there and turn the program back over to David Craig and our wonderful friends at Grid Health. David?
Oh my goodness, Sheila, Barry, Ashley, thank you so much. The thread that I heard through this whole conversation is it takes all of us, and I feel the invitation to action, right? We all need to be a part of creating change. Sheila, you've always said to us, we have more in common than we have different. And we
Exactly.
all love our moms, we all love our sisters and brothers, and we have to do this work together to help everybody have the best outcomes. And so we are incredibly honored to have been a part of this courageous conversation that you led. We are deeply grateful to Bristol Myers Squibb to have co-created this platform specifically to amplify the lived experiences and to
Yes.
be able to hear these stories. Although it was just the one thing I wanted to share. I remember the moment in my life where 10 years of shame from hiding reproductive cancer and my loss of sexual function and fertility and all those things I was hiding. I remember seeing somebody running around with a plushie saying, "This one's not going to kill me," and it gave me permission to talk about the body parts that I thought were trying to kill me. And for everybody who saw themselves in your stories and who sees themselves in your work, I am incredibly grateful for those miracles. Sheila, to create action from this session, we have 2 calls of action we want to invite everybody to be a part of. The first is our team is going to drop a link in the chat right now. We want to hear your stories. If you want to share your experiences and your stories, please click on that link so that you can share them. Because this year we are co-creating 2 resources that don't exist. And so from all of this work together, we're going to be creating a handbook for individuals who are experiencing discrimination in the healthcare system. So there can be a way and a path to deal with those situations when they happen. And the second one we're co-creating with everyone here is a toolkit for individuals who want to use their voice, like Ashley and Barry are, to co-create structural change in healthcare. So please, we encourage you, fill out that form, share your stories. We'll be in touch with you. And then just the last call to action, when this window closes in just 2 minutes, there's going to be a link to a survey. We want to know what we can do to be better and to co-create the future with you. So please take just a moment and complete that survey. Sheila, I have to give you the last word in this session. What was it like to amplify these experiences and to share this time?
The voices are what really makes the most difference to me, because that's really the reality of what we're dealing with. We're dealing with people with lived lives, and their experiences mean a lot. So I think the more we listen to each other, refresh these conversations, the better off we are. And they are courageous conversations. We're in a very toxic environment from a racial perspective, but that's an opportunity. That's an opportunity for us to step out and change the direction of where things are going, especially in healthcare, so that everyone can achieve their optimal health, no matter what they look like, what language they speak, or where they come from. Amen.
Amen. Sheila, Ashley, Barry, with all of our hearts and minds, thank you for our time today.